Hey yo guys, I'm back here to give you a video on just some of my thoughts about just some of the news items that have happened around the week in, combat sports, mainly just professional wrestling and mixed martial arts. Boxing hasn't had that much news, but excited for this weekend's Boxing After Dark show as well, especially the Kirkland fight. But anyways, you'll hear my predictions on that probably tomorrow. But anyways, my first thing I want to talk about isn't really the news issue in the combat sports world, but it's more me saying thank you to, you people. For those of you who don't know why I'm doing this, well, I've cracked over 2,000 subscribers now, which is to me just saying thank you, because, without people, I wouldn't be doing this. If there was not much of an audience, I wouldn't be doing this. So, thank you for that. One of the things I've decided to try and do to, extend this channel is on Stickam. I've decided to, potentially do, a live show every Wednesday where, a lot of people want to know my thoughts on, like, the TV shows like Raw and ECW. I never get to really review it, as I feel it's pointless to review TV shows. I do it there, give you my thoughts on them there, what's happened on the shows, just my overall opinions. May do one on, the weekend, but I haven't really decided that. But for sure the Wednesday one is going to happen, because Wednesdays there's nothing that happens in the realm of combat sports. But if I do it on the weekend, it would be just, some of the news items and, of course, Impact, SmackDown thoughts. As well with that, I kind of want to do, interactive stuff, like, you can do live Q&A. I may even use my Skype so you can, like, call in to, kind of like a radio show where you get to call in and ask a question, about stuff from the past, present, or, just stuff you want to know about, like, how did this happen and why. Pretty knowledgeable about that stuff, so if you, want to do that, you can send me questions. That's something I also want to make mention of. I mean, this channel is about boxing, mixed martial arts, and pro wrestling. Send questions on that, anything from the past, anything current, anything you want to know my thoughts on, like, or why did this happen. Definitely, we can, with the professional wrestling, we can definitely expand this, past the mainstream. We can go, international, Puro, Lucha, what have you, Indies. I'm pretty good there as well. Same with, MMA. Boxing, same thing there. But, just a lot of this. I like a lot of the questions from the past, not knocking, some thoughts on, questions on some of the stuff that's happening in the current realm. But, some of the stuff from the past is just more fun to answer. And, I guess the last thing I want to talk about this channel is in the comment section for, reviews, previews. I kind of want to, make it where, for the reviews, I've been kind of plugging, worst match and best match, worst match, and then overall thoughts. I like to have that. I think if I could get everyone to go that format, it would make, the comments a lot easier to read, what have you, than, it all just jumbled up. I mean, if you have to do your comment in Microsoft Word or whatever word processing program you use, that's fine. I'm just in there. I think it makes it a lot easier to read. I mean, and, with your previews, you can kind of just put, the matches you're looking forward to the most or the least, and then, your overall thoughts on how the shows pan out, in your opinion. I think that would be a lot easier for me to read and for, the fellow viewers to read. And I guess the last thing here is, since this channel is broad, I like to get, more MMA and boxing comments. I mean, I get a lot of wrestling, and I appreciate that, but, this channel's trying to be broadened, and, a lot of MMA and boxing would help. I know I've got a lot of new boxing and MMA subscribers, which is a good positive thing, but, a lot of those people would be great. Anyways, just some of the topics I want to talk about, is, so far the build to WrestleMania hasn't been the greatest thing in the world, but there's a month away, as, this show's April 5th. I guess, the big match they're hyping up is Triple H Randy Orton. While that match, we've seen it a billion times, it's a new storyline, so everyone, let's not get freaked out here. And, the story they've done is pretty strong. I mean, they've, no longer kayfabe that Triple H is not part of the family, which is a big positive, if you don't mind me saying that. And, just a whole good promo arc between the two, and I expect some big things to come up on between the two. I don't know if we'll see enough Triple H on SmackDown, as if he'll probably be on Raw hyping this up, as this is the main match. It looks like to be the main event. That's just my thoughts there, but I think, there'll be some big angles along the way, and I have a feeling though what I would like to see them do is, have it more where Orton gets a lot of the advantage going in, where it looks like that he will for sure probably will not win, but that's just me saying that. I think if you have Orton, be the dastardly heel and get, the upper hand most of the way going into Mania, it builds for, a more dynamic match between the two. Other with Mania, I mean, Money in the Bank, yeah, I've read the SmackDown spoilers and seen ECW, what have you. We got a lot in Raw as well. We have a couple of new people in there. I mean, we have Kane, Mark Henry, Shelton Benjamin, and MVP with CM Punk, so we have 5 guys in. 2 men remain, or 3 men remain, I should say. They're doing an 8-man this year. Not the biggest fan of the 8-man one. I thought the 8-man one in 2003, while it wasn't that bad, I mean, it just was kind of slow and plodding. Oh no, we have 6 men actually, excuse me. I forgot about Finlay. I think the 8-man doesn't really work that well. I think 7 was actually a good dynamic. 6 is always the best, if you don't know anything. I think 8's just too much traffic, and it's more build from spot to spot. If you look at the 2007 one at WrestleMania 23, that's just my thoughts on that. I know a lot of people are complaining that Mark Henry's in there. Don't worry, Mark Henry's not seriously going to be a contender. But it leaves to, question, looking at all the guys in there, there's not a real strong contender. The only one at this moment, as I'm making this video, would be CM Punk. But I don't know if they'll pull the trigger on him. I mean, there's 2 spots. We'll see who they put in there. They better be some fantastic fucking people. I just better say that. MVP, yeah, but, look how he's been booked in recent months. Doesn't look like he could be strong enough to go in there. Shelton, he's always in it, never wins. Just, he's just in there to be the match performer, if you don't mind me saying. Kane, just a solid big man in there that can do some stuff in there. Punk, like I said, right now is the favorite. Henry is just going to do some power stuff, like power, probably do a World's Strongest Slam with a ladder or around a guy's back, what have you, and get, like that, and probably go through either an announce table or through a ladder or something set up, or through a table setup or something. That's just what I see happening. So that match needs a little bit more oomph into it. It's definitely not looking like the greatest Money in the Bank ever, but still, there's still a month. Moving over, I guess, to a couple more matches here. You got, Hardy and Matt Hardy match. That thing has really not taken off to where you would have thought it would. They're trying to do the whole copycat of the Bret Hart, Owen Hart angle. That was a massive successful thing back from 1994 was when it was really, but the thing started in 93 and it ended in, late 94. Big time span. Well, they're right now trying to rush this up for a month, at least a month. That doesn't really help as well. I mean, Hardy's promo work has been pretty strong, but I mean, the promo that he does, not this week's SmackDown, but next week's, makes it seem like he tried to kill Jeff's dog and burn his house. Doesn't make it seem cool. I don't mind him being the attacker and what have you, but I don't understand why he would be the jealous one when he was an ECW champion. Now, granted, that belt absolutely does not mean anything, but he was still, like, a big-time champion. That's just my thoughts on that. As well as they kind of already buried, in the promo that they had last week on SmackDown, they buried the tag belt, ECW belt, even more so, and the US belt, even more so. So, smooth work there by WWE. And I guess lastly, the last match I can talk about is, the triple threat now for the World Heavyweight Championship between Cena, Edge, and Big Show. Big Show being in there, he adds definitely a monkey wrench. I wasn't that looking forward to him. Big Show, not the best, not the worst worker in the world, but still at this match, I like to see title matches at Mania be single matches, and I think Big Show being in there, it definitely makes it a weaker match, considering, Cena and Edge have so much chemistry, not only in the ring, but mic work to build to it. So that's just my thoughts on that. The WWE, they released the Boogeyman, big deal. Boogeyman wasn't the greatest worker ever. I mean, he made this gimmick into something pretty interesting, I guess, when the gimmick on paper is terrible. But he made it something kind of interesting at least. But really the thing was, he was 44, he wasn't going to be a better worker. Clearly he couldn't really improve at all from, his time working with Booker T. He wasn't going to go anywhere, and so the company decided there's no point in sending him back to develop where he wasn't going to learn anything, so they just axed him, and there was nothing for him to do. No problem with this release, but to me, I think the Boogeyman will make a strong living on the independent scene. That's just my thoughts there. So, I mean, like, look at the Honky Tonk Man. He's made a strong living with that gimmick. Will WWE own the copyrights to this? Probably not as much as you would think. With, you know, they probably will let him make a strong living on the independents. I mean, the only thing positive you could say about Boogeyman was, you know, for a guy at 44, he kept his body in hell of a good shape. So that's the one positive you can give him. Was he the greatest worker? Absolutely not. But, you know, he tried. You know, he lived his dream, so that's something you can't hate on him for. But still, you know, he wasn't going to get any better. That's why he was mainly released. And, you know, when you look at Kozlov, that could be a situation where he's not getting any better. And there's no point sending him to developmental. He'd be gone. He could be gone after Mania at the latest. That's just my thoughts there. And then this brings up the whole argument about developmental. Well, how come no one's getting better? Really, when they bring up guys, they're just too green, and it's a bunch of green guys working green guys. Now, when you look at the FCW roster now, really the only bright spots are, you know, low-key is Caval, because that guy's, you know, had worlds of experience around the world, you know, in the independents and, you know, in Japan. And TJ Wilson, D.H. Smith, because they have that pedigree and it's just built into them. Joe Henning, yeah, but he still needs a little more work. But then again, he's had the time working not only in FCW, but with Harley Race's WLW promotion. So, I mean, he's going to get that. And he's worked with some of the Japanese guys from Pro Wrestling Noah. So, he should be a pretty strong deal there. To me, the best thing that, you know, when OVW was the developmental territory, is they would bring guys from the WWF over to work these guys to make them better, realizing that they're future opponents. That's something that this FCW should do, and that was one of the reasons they made FCW the mainstay, was that a lot of the workers live in the state of Florida. Be easy for them to get there and work. I don't know why they're not doing this. It would, you know, be great. I mean, the FCW on the original shows would bring, you know, WWE talent in, like Cena and Jericho, what have you, but they mainly just did promos. Yeah, you know, it's nice to give the talent there a rub, but wouldn't it be better to get them a rub in the ring and, you know, improve their work skills? That's just my opinion on this. I think they could do that. Or, you know, if they don't really need just one territory. If they had, you know, 4 and, you know, continued, you know, working relations with, you know, a Japanese promotion like, you know, Pro Wrestling Noah or New Japan Wrestling, All Japan, what have you, and, you know, maybe even a Mexican promotion like CMLL or AAA, something like that, where, you know, you're sending these workers into different working environments, you know, get to learn different styles. It makes you get so improved quickly. I think they could have one, you know, in, you know, Toronto, probably California, I think would be a strong one. You know, one in the Midwest like Chicago. They could put one in New York as well, New York, Philadelphia, and, you know, some international ones they could do, like in, you know, England, somewhere in London. Stuff like that, and, you know, use their Japanese, you know, use working relationships with Japan and Mexico. I think that would help out a lot there. You know, I think one of the ones they could do is Puerto Rico. I mean, they have a pretty strong establishment with the Colones, you know, with the WWC promotion down there that, you know, Carlos Colon owns, so they could just whole new environment, definitely some rabid fan base, and the guys improve the work. I mean, when you look at Eric Escobar, I mean, I believe he is from Puerto Rico, and, you know, that's why they picked him up. I don't know why they wouldn't send him there and, you know, improve his skills. That's just me, though. Anyways, still on, you know, professional wrestling. You know, ROH, they taped their TV show. I'll put a link in the description box of the trailer that HDNET released. The show looks pretty strong. If production truck video that I may also link in here. The production truck, it looks like a real strong show. The camera angles are sweet. I've heard a lot of people say, well, why couldn't they put these in the video wire? HDNET owns the footage, and you can and you really don't want to spoil the show, as, you know, it hasn't aired yet. Really, I'm looking forward to this show. Taped a lot of stuff. I mean, it's going to be a little weird to see how they, you know, tape it, considering they have to do this with DVDs. I mean, this show, those results, doesn't look like it has a lot of angles or anything on that, which is fine, I guess. It's just trying to be, you know, it's going to be a very wrestling-heavy show. I mean, it's an hour show, and at least you have 30 to 45 minutes of wrestling, which is really good. I mean, when you look at WWE's ECW show, I mean, the most wrestling-heavy show they have, and they've got about 20 to 25 minutes of wrestling, so that's a real good thing. But, I mean, I don't know how the fans are going to get introduced to the characters, what have you. If they better do some vignettes, I don't know, but I'm really looking forward to this. Moving over to MMA, just 2 things I want to make note of. There's a mega fight between, you know, 2 ex-pro wrestlers announced for pay-per-view March 21. Horrible date, I might add. It's like 2 weeks away. It's Ken Shamrock versus Bobby Lashley. You know, this fight screams two things at me. One, how far has Ken Shamrock really fallen when he's, you know, selling himself like this? You know, Ken could just, you know, easily retire and be a commentator with, you know, a Strike Force or something of that sort. But I don't know. He's taking on Bobby Lashley. Yeah, Lashley's had one MMA fight and only went 41 seconds as he cut Joshua Franklin. Pretty bad, I have to say. But still, this fight, how do I see it happening? I just think it's real sad about Ken, how he's just treating himself there. He's falling into the original profession, I guess he chose, which was professional wrestling. He was trained by Buzz Sawyer, for those of you who did not know. Anyways, just my thoughts. I mean, how do I see this one going? I think Ken's experience can be pretty, you know, I'll take that very well into consideration. I think he can hit Lashley enough to maybe get him down and get an armbar. I do see Ken winning the fight, but, you know, Lashley's just so strong, so powerful, and he's got a, you know, a strong wrestling standout, you know, background. So that makes it a pretty dynamic fight. But, you know, the thing I don't like about this is a wrestling boxing pay-per-view. I don't think those are ever going to sell whatsoever. I mean, I know there's plenty of shows like that have been around, but those I don't think work because you have two dynamic fan bases that only want to see the sport that they're fans of, either the MMA or the boxing. And, you know, a boxing fight, you know, if it's 12 rounds or 10, that can go up to a very long time, you know, at least 5 minutes to an hour, and you have to wait for the MMA fight. I mean, that's pretty bad. And besides, the biggest draw on this is Roy Jones Jr., as he's got a boxing fight on this card as well. I don't know how well this is going to do. This won't do very well on the pay-per-view box office-wise, as this does not get TV to hype it up, which sucks big time for them. That's just my thoughts there. And finally, just wanted to make mention that the WEC is about to have their rematch, Mike Brown and Uriah Faber, and it apparently will be at the WEC's first pay-per-view. To me, this is a good idea. Let's just try something new. I mean, Zuffa can, you know, they can afford to do this. I mean, if it flops, who cares? Because then, you know, you have your TV market with Versus, and, you know, you're not losing anything. I think they can just try it. But one thing I would have liked to see is, you know, for UFC, put some of these guys on their pay-per-views, either opening fight bouts or, you know, something just to get exposure, because, you know, Uriah Faber and, you know, Miguel Torres, just for example, they could be superstars. They're stars right now, but they could be superstars if they were on UFC. And, you know, this fight to me, I think would maybe have been suited better for UFC 100. You know, UFC buys, you know, instead of 3 hours, a 4-hour block. You know, excuse me, they can show extra moments, you know, from the other shows that are, you know, great moments, but then they have more fights and they don't have to worry about, you know, running out of time. I mean, you have a couple title fights. I know that, I understand that. So that's why you have the 4 hours. Make this the opening fight. Both, you know, these guys will have an exciting fight for sure, and, you know, these guys will become superstars in the process. As Mike Brown, he's definitely made a name for himself, especially that victory over Leonard Garcia this past weekend. Anyways, that's just my thoughts on this. Anyways, that's it for me. If you want to send questions, please could use a lot, so I want to make a Q&A sometime in the coming weeks. Anyways, that's it for me. I am out. Peace.